Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Peace and love, y'all. Travelers Podcast, Brother Ali, BK1. This is a little bit different episode. I was asked a question that I started to have a conversation with Brendan about, the producer of the podcast. He was my DJ for many years. He's an incredible DJ, incredible producer, super dope. So somebody asked me, what are your top 10 favorite hip hop beats? Like, just what are the best beats that you can think of? And so I started putting a list together, and I can't remember what prompted it, but I mentioned it to Brendan, and we started getting into this conversation. And I said, you know what, we were going to have a conversation anyway for the podcast because BK1 just put out a project called A Black Box Recovery. That was like really kind of like experimental, musical, like instrumental album for him. That's really dope. And so I was saying we should sit down and talk about this on the podcast. And maybe as a special segment on the podcast, we can talk about our top 10 favorite beats. Well, it turned into a much bigger conversation. So we decided to make it its own episode. So it's something that's pretty rare. Like it's rare that I just talk about opinions on this podcast. Like I have a worldview that's important, and so I talk to people that are in relation to that, and I certainly like share the way that I see things, but I usually don't talk about other people and their art. And I usually don't, we try not to ever disparage anybody. And now that I'm looking back on this conversation, there are a few things that I said that, about people and their music that is not the normal thing that I usually talk about. But I thought that this conversation was interesting. I thought that you might dig it. And so we're going to share it. We'll be back next week. We have our dear friend, Mally, who is an incredible, towering artist from the Twin Cities hip hop community. He just made a brand new album called The Sweetest of It All. There's a lot of really dope stuff happening in underground hip hop music in general, like the world of independent hip hop music, especially my corner of it, our corner of it, is really having, maybe it's a resurgence, maybe I just notice it because I'm really active in this moment. But, earlier this year, I put out an album with a producer named Unjust called Love and Service. Not only did he produce the whole thing, but he also did animated, illustrated videos for the entire project. Not all of them are out yet, but it will eventually be a film that you can watch. And I feel like I should have mentioned this, but we actually submitted this film to film festivals, and we're like winning stuff. You know what I'm saying? We're placing and winning things, and we got laurels and all that stuff. So at some point we'll talk about all that. But that's really dope. And then on top of that, we just see like friends of ours putting out this really incredible music. BK1 just put out A Black Box Recovery. Mally and DJ Last Word, who, I toured with for the last like 8 years or something. He produced this entire project with Mally, and it's amazing. It's an incredible album. The Sweetest of It All. You can get that on MallyMPLS.com. So I also announced that we have another album coming. More announcements to come very soon about that. But me and Ant made an album together. Ant from Atmosphere, who produced most of the music of mine that people really know, and my most successful music has been with him. And so the two of us made a full album together, and that's going to be coming out soon. But he and I are going on tour. So if you go to brotherali.com, you can check out me and Ant are going on tour with another underground independent outspoken artist named D1. D1 is from New Orleans. He's from the hood in New Orleans, and he's a professor at Tufts University and also as a fellow at Harvard University. He just recently launched his own podcast called Flipping Tables, which is a direct reference to Jesus in the Bible. Peace be upon Jesus, who, becomes, how do I say it? Frustrated and disappointed. How about that? With the fact that people have turned the places of worship into places of commerce, and they're like trying to buy and sell and get ahead in commercial sense. And so he goes in and flips the tables over. Well, D1 really shook up the hip hop industry, the mainstream hip hop industry, by talking about the glorification of violence and talking about the fact that a lot of these artists are grown people that live completely legitimate lives and are no longer part of that life, but are still being paid and still trying to make a name and create art around people killing each other. So he's called that out in a way that has really taken the industry by storm. He's had a lot of big conversations and interviews and things like that. Platforms like 19 Keys, who, if you follow like Black consciousness and cultural conversation, is like one of the main platforms. And I think the culmination of it all, in some ways, I mean, obviously his D1's music and his performances and everything is incredible. But as a cultural moment, Kendrick Lamar just ended his newest song by saying, I wish I had the heart. I want to have a heart like D1. He's actually talking to God. And he says, God, I want a heart like D1. I want to be empathetic like him. I want to care like him. So that's a major moment, especially because Kendrick, in a lot of ways, that's him responding to himself and the fact that he just had this really, war with Drake and, all this stuff. So anyway, so he shouts out D1 in the first thing that he released since the big Pop Out concert, since They're Not Like Us, since the moment, of him talking about Meet the Grams and all this stuff. He shouts out D1 and he basically ends that song by saying, that's how I would like to be. It reminds me of when Jay-Z said, if skill, soul, truth be told, I'd probably be lyrically Talib Kweli. It's like, yo, Jay-Z shouted out Kweli. Like that's a big moment for people in our section of the space and of the culture. So I'm going on tour with D1 and with Ant to celebrate a new album that me and Ant are releasing called Satisfied Soul. You can get all of that on brotherali.com. But this particular conversation comes on the heels of me and BK1, just talking and chopping it up and talking about beats that we love. So enjoy it. This podcast every week is brought to you by the Zakat Foundation, zakat.org. That's a global humanitarian organization that just does really amazing work all over the world. Go to zakat.org, Zakat US on social media, check out what they're doing, get down with it, support it, and enjoy this episode of Travelers Podcast with me and BK1 talking about our favorite beats. All right, so somebody hit me with a question recently that I hadn't considered before. Everybody talks about who's your top 5 MCs or who are your top 5 producers or who's on your Mount Rushmore or whatever. But somebody's asked me, what are your top 10 hip hop beats? Like not songs, like just the beat. And it was an interesting question. I usually hate those kind of questions, but I'm like, this one is different because I get to actually sit with like, what are the actual beats that, these are all beats for songs, like none of them are instrumentals, but, we don't have the luxury of having heard them without the song. So I don't know how much of this is just that the song is great. You know what I mean? Because almost all of them are attached to great songs, but not all of them. There is stuff on here that like, I don't really care what the rapper is saying on the song.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I thought about it and I made a list and then I asked you to do the same thing. We don't know each other's lists, I don't think.
Nope.
So, yeah. So you want to go first or you want to each give, and are yours in order?
No, I don't have an order. It's funny when you and I first met each other, I was so into lists. Like I had a little mini notebook that I kept in sort of a special place in my house, and it was just a book of lists.
And then they made a book of rap lists. Like Ego Trip made a book of rap lists. Yeah, and I remember you were like, yo, that meant a lot to you.
Yeah. And it's funny because I can't even really point to why or like what the catalyst or the turning point was, but at some point, my heart and my brain just did an about face, and I'm really kind of anti-lists at this point. It just doesn't really represent the way that I engage with art anymore. But that being said, Nobody had ever asked me this question before. I think it's a really interesting one, and it was kind of fun to think about this. I I found myself, I don't know how you approached your list. Um, I sort of accidentally kept weaving like autobiography into my list. Like a number of the things that are on my list are there because of what they meant for me and or like what they opened up for me. Um, I also sort of made a decision early on that my list wasn't going to be determined by like technical skills. You know, like it wasn't going to be like this one is on here because you have to understand that to make this, what they did was, you know what I mean? And I was like, you know, this isn't going to be about the deepest sample pull or the most technically proficient, you know, execution of this or that. It's just, how do they feel in my body? What do they do for me? I can get us started. Why don't we go back and forth?
Okay. What's a first one? Like not the first.
A first one for me is deep cover. The deep cover beat is, you know, there's not a lot going on in there. First of all, it's an obvious choice. The DJ in me thinks of it as just a go-to. It never misses. It's a beat with very few musical elements, but each element is doing its job perfectly. And I mean, typical of Dre productions, just the frequencies in this song absolutely sing on a big system or in a club. You know, you put this on and that bass sound just fills your body with vibration and makes you feel a certain kind of way. And this falls into a category of beats that I used to call stab the refrigerator beats. It's just like beats that just get you so amped you could like put your head through a wall or something.
Yeah.
You know? So deep cover would be a big one for me. What do you got?
It's crazy. Well, I was just hearing, so that's somebody playing the bass, and I forget the guy's name. I should know it, but like there's this one person who played the bass on so many Dre things. And that whole approach was really inspired by Low End Theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, you know what I'm saying? Where like Q-Tip was like, okay, we're going to make an album where it's mostly drum sounds and bass, and then anything around that would just be incidental, but like those are going to be the focus. That's, you know what I mean? And the fact that like just the statement of that record that they start out, so many of the songs just start with a bass line. Even the album itself like just starts with a bass line. And the idea of Dre taking that and having his own spin on it, you know what I mean? And I mean, in a lot of ways, Dre is a reactor too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because early Dre is Public Enemy.
That's right.
And it's a lot of times it's East Coast stuff. And I mean, even before that, early Dre is like PSK and Rick Rubin. You know what I mean? Beastie Boys. Like early Dre is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Planet Rock and all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah. But that's one. So I have a Dre one too. It wasn't going to be my number one, but I mean, for me, it was a lot of, I can't make this list without this person having something on the list. You know what I mean? Like there's only a couple of them that are like, this beat is just for the sake of this beat. But like, these are producers that have made some of my favorite music. So with Dre, it's really hard to choose.
Of course.
Like Still Dre could definitely be one. Man, to me, like I always love "Let Me Ride," like as a piece of music, like it's so beautiful. You know what I mean? Like a lot of that music is really like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like we're gonna kill everybody, but that one's beautiful. The way they use the samples and the different collages of everything. Like I really love "Let Me Ride." I really love, there's so many that it could have been, but it's funny that you picked that one because I picked "Phone Tap."
Oh, okay. Yeah,
a really similar reason. Like Phone Tap makes me want to rap. You know, it's not one of his biggest songs. It was like he probably never plays it live or whatever, but that phone tap beat is just the musical elements of it and all the different pieces of it. Yeah, that's the one that I put from Dre.
You know what else I really love from him? And it's just, I mean, it's just pulling two pieces from a record that, you know, everybody's parents had, but the Snoop G's and Hustlers beat with that Bernard Wright, just the marriage of the sort of like toy piano, like the sweet breakdown, and then just the like the beat that makes you screw your face all up when it drops in. It's just so beautiful. I love that one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty much impossible. I mean, I do not like what Dre stands for in the you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, man, this is not a good, this person is not a good influence on the world, but musically it's undeniable. Like sonically especially, it's like, it's undeniable. Yeah. And especially seeing the things that he was inspired by and was like, yeah, let me make that. Yeah, I feel like him and somebody like a Leora Cohen or Jimmy Iovine, these people in the music industry that I, like if I needed a poster child for what's wrong with the music industry, like those are the faces I look to. Mm-hmm. And just how much they love Dre. Because it's like he'll take something that, you know, comes from the musical tradition, from the culture, and he'll perfect it and make it negative at the same time. Like sonically just perfect it and also make it negative. You know what I mean? Like he tried to do that to Rakim. Yeah. Rakim moved there. Like Rakim moved to LA on some like, I'm going to work with Dre. This is going to be the most amazing thing ever. And Dre is like, yeah, but you got to be a drug dealer, killer, murderer. You know what I mean? And Rakim will like, I just saw an interview with Rakim where he was like, you know, sometimes on my records, I'm just talking crap. I'm like, you can fully curse on every platform now, but it's like Rakim is not going to curse in public. Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
This is like a 50-something-year-old man. Like, I know he started that because his parents were hovering around his recording sessions. He's like, I couldn't make moms upset. You know, my pops was around. I couldn't.
Love it.
Yeah, man. Rakim, I think about all of this all the time. I know you've heard me say this a million times. Rakim has, like, at the same time that Dre and them were saying the worst possible things to and about women, at the same time that Dr. Dre assaulted a real life woman that we all know and love, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like somebody very important to the culture, like Sister D Barnes. Mm-hmm. But like their stuff about women is so excessively violent. And at the same time, Rakim made I Want to Know What's on Your Mind, where he like tries to talk to a woman on the subway. And then she turned away. No play. I said, okay, you don't really look good. I hope you have a bad day. Like, that's the worst thing Rakim's going to say.
Have a bad day.
I hope, you know what? Let me tell you something, ma'am. Excuse me for being so frank, but you, on second thought, you don't look as good as I thought you did when I thought you might be friendly. And along with that, I hope you have a bad day. That's the worst thing Rakim's going to say about her. Man, never describes never talks about, and then the second that she comes around, he's like, oh man, and she's very smart, and she's very insightful about things. And man. Yeah. It's just crazy that Dre is like, I want to make a record with Rakim. Just how do we make him negative? It's like, man, anyway. But I mean, that's how good the music is. It's undeniable. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, somebody that I vehemently disagree with his worldview and how these white devil music executives have used him to what they want to do with music in general. You know what I mean? Like, man, of course he's the first billionaire producer.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the devil in the music industry is just like, you are my favorite. But man, you can't deny how good that music is.
Yeah. So another one on my list is similar to the first one, where I suspect that each of us were like, there needs to be a Bomb Squad production on here. And it could have easily been 5 or 6 different songs. The one that I picked out was Welcome to the Terror Dome. Mostly because of how it impacted me when I heard it. when I got that tape.
Yeah.
Um,
That's probably their masterpiece, right? Like, I mean, if you had to point to one, I
it's
mean, they got a
definitely
bunch
one
of
of
them, but I don't, man, I think that's got to be it.
I mean, one of the things that I love so much about this beat in particular is that there are so many incidental samples, I'm going to call them, that are just sort of peppered throughout. There's so many little whoos and half a second of a siren or a scream or a sound effect that are just dropped in the oddest places throughout the song and mixed a little bit low so that you don't even notice half of them until like your fourth or fifth listen.
Yeah.
The sequencing throughout this whole beat is ridiculous. And then, like so many of their classic beats, the Bomb Squad was just so good at making songs that had this like harmonic tension in them that make them feel unsettling or like something's about to pop off.
They're sampling music from some of the greatest musicians, and somehow it's the between moments where this isn't actually music.
Yes.
Like, that's the Temptations, right?
Yeah.
Or Eddie Kendricks or something like that. But it's just like, what key is this in? You know what I mean? It's like an in between kind of like, man, they sound like sound effects, but they're all from musical pieces. That's just like, we're gonna make your music anti-music.
Yeah, and you've talked to me before about how Ant doesn't like, when he's doing scratch things, he doesn't like to scratch in key, which I think is really interesting. There's stuff that happens with Public Enemy's music where they're layering samples and there's like a dissonance or like an odd harmony created by putting them together that's not amusical, but it's music that is designed to make your body feel a way that...
Tension.
Yeah, tension.
Yeah, it's the opposite of Dre.
That's right.
Like Dre like he's perfected all of those things. And like they're just like, nah. You know what I mean? Like it's interesting too. Like if you look at their group, you look at the people in their group, and we talked to Chuck about this on the podcast, but it's like their group is the assertion that like the entire Black community is part of the family and everybody's voice matters and everybody's important. So like, yeah, Chuck and Flav, you know what I mean? Like the idea that Flavor Flav and Professor Griff are in the same group and have been for 30 years or 40 years or something is pretty amazing. And then once you know them and you know that like these people, like they really are, they're not just the characters that they're playing. You know what I mean? Like Uncle Chuck is your uncle and Professor Griff is really not happy that you're not doing push-ups. And Flavor Flav is really not here. You know what I mean? Or he's really doing something that you know what I mean? It's just like, what the hell are you doing? But then also all those S1Ws and DJ Lord and like, these are people that shouldn't even be friends at all. But there's something about it that's like, no, there's a bigger purpose here and everybody gets to be themselves. Everybody is fully themselves. Like you don't have to be uniform in this thing. And it all just makes sense because of the idea that this all belongs together. Yeah, I actually remade, like when I was learning, when I was like working on production, I didn't have all the records, but I like could get all the samples off YouTube or whatever. And I remade Welcome to the Terrordome.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, you and I remade the Brothers Gonna Work It Out beat off that same album.
Kind of.
I mean, yeah.
There's some of it that we just took. There's some of the bridges and things like that we just took. We remade the basics of the beat.
Yeah. I mean, even just remaking the core beat and then several of the like vocal samples that go over it. It's not like it was news to me how many different places it was pulling music from, but just through the process of like reassembling it, it really reinforced my appreciation of them and their process, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are masterpieces that nobody else could do.
Yeah. You got a Bomb Squad beat on here, on your list?
Welcome to Teardown.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's like, like that, to me, that's the one that if you wanted to show anybody, like, what is the Bomb Squad? That's the one. I mean, it could be Brothers Gonna Work It Out. It could be Fight the Power. It could be 100 Things. But then also like as a Public Enemy song, that's probably like that and Fight the Power are probably my favorite Public Enemy songs for different reasons. Like Fight the Power does feel like the whole crowd can sing along and all that kind of stuff. It's their one that kind of feels kind of like a single, most like a single, I guess. But and I mean, Can't Trust It is kind of like that, and like there's a million of them, but yeah, that's just, it's a masterpiece, and there's nothing else that will ever sound like it. It inspired a lot of stuff, but nothing ever. Like I know that Cypress Hill is Public Enemy, like that's West Coast Public Enemy. They've said it. You know what I mean? So like Sin Dog is Chuck and Be Real is Flav. So the main voice is Flav and the hype man voice is Chuck. And Rage Against the Machine and everything else, like all the other stuff that's inspired by, and even Straight Outta Compton, in a lot of ways, is negative Public Enemy.
Yes.
But man, nothing else will ever sound like that.
Yeah. And I mean, this is true of a lot of the best songs, but you listen to really any of Public Enemy, but I'm going to point back to to Welcome to the Terror Dome. The voices on this function as instruments in the beat, which is not to minimize the messages, the language, the words. I mean, but like you listen to Chuck and Flavor's voice and then the scratching, and it's all part of the beat,
Yeah.
They're like percussion instruments or,
You don't have to understand what they're saying. Like even before I understood everything he was saying, I was like, this is dope. Like this is who I am.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yeah, like you talk about the autobiographical part. I got that it was on a cassette single before the full album came. And somebody gave it to me for my birthday. Like one of my friends when I was like 13 or 12 or something gave me this single as a cassette single for my birthday. And I was just like, this is who I am as a person. Like Welcome to the Terror Dome is me. I don't even know what a Terror Dome is. It's just in line with everything else. Like I don't even know what that is. And then there's little times where like before I was like old enough and before Who Sampled and all this stuff where you can like go find everything, I would hear little bits and pieces of the song, like little things that they sampled. I feel like there's one in what's that epic movie about Vietnam?
Full Metal Jacket?
No. The other one,
Apocalypse
Kubrick.
Now?
Yeah, there's one. I feel like there's one in Apocalypse Now. Like I don't know if it's a music thing or something, but I was watching Apocalypse Now, and when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, this movie is dope. Like I wanted to know every Chuck D says in one of the songs, but you check out the books they own. Something. I was like, what books does Chuck D own? I want to have those books. I would like go to the library and look at the wall of books and be like, what would Chuck D read?
What would Chuck D read?
And when that movie was playing and I heard some sample, like it was probably just a little sample or something, I was like, oh, Public Enemy watches this movie. Like, all right, now I'm trying to pay attention to this movie.
Yeah. Or they'll use samples that you've been listening to your whole life, and they use them in such a different context that it's not even until like your 20th listen that you're like, wait, is that the guitar solo from the end of Prince?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but it sounds so menacing here.
Yeah.
That can't be the same thing.
Yeah.
No, it's the exact same thing. It's just, again, that like harmonic tension, the way that they chopped it up, all the things that they surrounded it with. It just has a whole new meaning and purpose and like effect on your body. Fantastic.
Yeah.
What else you got on your list?
Okay, so we mentioned the rappers being like a instrument, and there's got to be a Dilla one. I chose Players.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, yeah, Slum Village are perfect. Like I didn't really appreciate very simple rhyming until I made an album with Evidence, and then I started hearing it everywhere. So I always like Guru, but I was always like, Guru is not the illest lyricist, but I love what he's about. I love his energy. I love I love how fly he is. I love his presence. I love I love Guru, but I never thought he was a good rapper, an above average rapper. I thought that was his one, like he never barred out until I started kicking it with Evidence. And the whole thing is like, learn how to say only the exact right words. And then suddenly it all became like, it's a long way to go when you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're going when you're lost. I'm just like, that is the most genius. Why can't I write a hook like that?
Yeah.
I'm going to make it, goddamn it, out and be ROOK, Lynn, the planet.
Yeah.
Like, man, what? And so, yeah, so, like the Slum Village put a new album out recently, like last year or this year or something. And it's great. You know what I mean? Like they just know exactly how to complement everything perfectly. And that's something I didn't appreciate. And the words on Players are just not that big a deal to me at all. But I'm kind of like, like a lot of his great beats. And I mean, he's got way too many to name. You cannot say what is the Dilla masterpiece, because they're kind of all masterpieces. But there's something about that one where like, maybe it's because the rappers didn't even share the spotlight with him. That like that beat is just like, it's so perfect and so simple and so, like, yeah, it's so physical. You know what I mean? Like you could write that one out on sheet music or something, but you would never communicate it. You could give somebody all those same pieces. You could remake that beat and it just won't. There's something very physical about the way that moves that you cannot recreate. And even though Dan Charnas wrote that amazing book about him, and like, you can say everything and do everything and it's all true, it's all real. But like that, when that beat plays, like your heart beats a certain way, you breathe a certain way, your body moves a certain way. Like you become a different physical person. Like you become somebody that can dance, can rap, can like, you become a different person that you like to be. It feels good to be the person that like that beat creates. And the first time I remember the first time I heard it, I was actually, I was at a hip hop night and Truth Maze was there. It was like Truth Maze's crew DJing, and like people that were around at that time knew I had like a big public like battle with them at First Avenue. And we never had beef in real life before or after, but I always was aware of my surroundings when I was around them. And that song came on and like, it was brand new, white label, like nobody had heard it. And like Truth Maze, and it was probably stage one. But he threw it on and Truth Maze started doing this like dance, like as the song played. And forever, that's part of it, is like the way that he was moving to it. It was just like, man, yeah, man, and that's one of the ones on the list that like, it's just the beat. Like the beat is so, there's no, like you can say all the words, but there's nothing like just playing that particular beat.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to interrupt you real quick, this conversation about beats, just to remind you that anything that you need to know about us is on brotherali.com. We got 500,000 followers on social media across the different platforms. Social media is one of the most frustrating realities in my life, and for a lot of us as artists. The streaming services and social media, it's really, really difficult. It's heartbreaking. It's infuriating. It's all the eightings. And it's super whack. So if you go to brotherali.com, you can interact with us directly. And please, please, please sign that mailing list. Just give your email. I don't sell your information. I don't share it with anybody. I used to be on a pretty big label called Rhymesayers. When I stepped away from that label, I now do my business on Travelers Media, which is me and BK1 having our own label. I didn't take those email lists with me. I didn't take those subscribers with me. I didn't take any of that with me. So if you go to brotherali.com, sign the mailing list. I only send out an email when there's a big announcement. I don't do it even periodically. Some people have actually asked me to do more emails than what I do. But we've got a caravan there, which is our community. You know, we've got all sorts of rare and exclusive speeches and music and some radio commercials that I did back in the day. And all kind of stuff there. We also have a level called the Trailblazers in our caravan, which is an actual community where people communicate with each other on a Slack channel and all of this stuff. So this is just me saying, I got a tour coming up. I got an album coming up. You know, maybe we'll release some of the music from the album to the email list first. Everything that we do, the caravan gets it first. A lot of times the people in the upper tier of the caravan get it for free. We got VIP packages coming up for me and Ant to do like a, you know, super intimate meet and greets and performances and all sorts of super dope exclusive stuff. So just do me a favor, please. While you're listening to this, go to brotherali.com, sign the mailing list, get down with the caravan, and stay part of this movement that we got going on Travelers Media.
You talked about recently finding an appreciation for simple rap. Lately, I've been really appreciating music, beats, compositions, whatever, that are really minimal. And so one of the songs on my list is Drop It Like It's Hot.
Yeah.
I've, in the last like 6 months, had a real spike in appreciation for Pharrell as a producer, almost entirely based on his restraint. I think my instinct is to overbake everything.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm constantly having to fight against. And so I really admire the confidence I think that it takes to have such a stripped down sound.
Yeah.
You know,
because he can build out a full symphony thing. He can totally do that.
Absolutely. Listening to this beat in particular, one of the things that I was thinking about is how when you do something so minimal, it means that every single element that you put in there is really visible for everybody to see.
Yeah.
It's like when there's so much space in your beat,
yes,
standing behind your choice of a really like brash synthesizer patch that comes in for the turnaround, like that takes confidence.
Right.
You like, you know, it's different when there's like a sound bath of all these things happening, and like each element that you add is an ingredient, but it's not like the thing standing naked in the middle of the stage with a spotlight on it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just a real appreciation of Pharrell. One of my favorite records is I was going to say new, but I mean, it's probably 10 years old at this point, but the newest NERD album, I think it's called No One Ever Really Dies. And I swear it's probably not true, but you listen to it and it's like he took one kit and one synthesizer and was just like, how many different ways could I freak these sounds? And then does a really effective job of covering a lot of different tempos and genres. And there's just something really beautiful and admirable to me in that. So drop it like it's hot.
Yeah. No, that's an amazing one. And it's funny because that song has come up a lot too in the Blood on Beat songwriting workshop. Like I use that one as an example kind of a lot, just because it's such an example of simplicity being just right. I remember they were talking to, who's the food guy that passed away? The like food critic dude with the TV show everybody loved.
Anthony Bourdain?
Yes. So he was saying that, he was like, yeah, people have some interview that I heard him, and they were talking about what's your favorite cuisine, and he's like, man, my favorite cuisine is anyone that's usually made by elders from that culture, because they understand that it's not about throwing the kitchen sink at everything. He's like, the best Mexican food is when you're with, it's usually going to be somebody in their 80s that knows that like this is beans and cheese and a tortilla and some tomatoes.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be the exact right mixture of those things. You know what I mean? And every one of those ingredients, even if they can't get their hands on the best one, you know, the most quality, whatever, he's like, it's just going to be the perfect. He said Italian food the same way. Tomatoes, garlic, pasta, maybe a cheese, you know, it's just like 4 ingredients done beautifully. And he's like, that's the thing that whenever people start out, they're like, well, I made this reduction sauce with this and that. And it's like, yeah, get out of my face with all that. He's like, that is all covering up the fact that you don't actually cook from your soul. You're overthinking this and you're not actually tasting it. Because what actually tastes best is just the right 4 things together. And I mean, you know, most DJ Premier beats are 3 sounds, 4 sounds. You know what I mean? It's a kick, a snare, a hi-hat. He chopped up 1 sample. Maybe there's a bass note, but maybe not. And then
there might be a bell.
Yeah. And then scratching.
Yeah.
And 1 track of the rapper rapping. You don't get a whole bunch of layers on a DJ Premier production. It's like just rap over these 4 sounds and it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, so my thing with Pharrell, I felt like I had to have a Pharrell thing in there and I couldn't figure out which one. So I was thinking about, there are some really like cinematic types of things that he's done. And then there's like the stripped down Pharrell. There's both. So I was thinking about like what a big, like, so Pharrell came out, or the Neptunes, like that came out at a time when I was just realizing that I could be a musician for a living. And there was a moment where people that we knew were getting looked at by record labels. And I remember thinking to so there was like a certain aspirational thing that was happening with a lot of those rappers, where like people that could really rap were on the radio and they were making big hit records and stuff. And there was something about rapping over a Pharrell beat that seemed like the ultimate aspirational thing. Like they had really like oversaturated cinematic videos full of like the most elite models with people driving the best cars and wearing the best watches. And you know what I mean? It's like and these were the most legit rappers. You know what I mean? It's like, man, Fabulous can actually rap and Jay-Z can actually rap, and like Fat Joe is on these records, and like, you know what I mean? And it's weird. Like, so there's something about Pharrell's music where I have like a bittersweet feeling about them, where I feel like they're really dope, but also every one of those songs makes me feel like I'm not good enough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have like a weird kind of like, there's an exclusive kind of feel to them that's like, not you, Ali. And it could be just totally me, but I don't think so. I think that a lot of those Pharrell songs, when you listen to them, beautiful, you know what I mean? And yeah, it's funny because like, there's a woman that I know that hates the song Beautiful, and she is very beautiful, but she's like, I could never be as fine and a desirable as whoever they were talking about in that song and whoever was in the video, and the way that it all looked. Like it was all so big, larger than life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That there was a feeling about it that like, you can't be this. And prior to that, I didn't want to be that. There was no part of me that ever wanted to be part of that. It was always like hip hop was always like underground, very similar to punk rock or whatever. Like, I don't want to have the best clothes, and I don't want to, you know what I'm saying? There was nothing about that world that ever felt like it had anything to do with me. And then something about Pharrell's music specifically started feeling like, well, wait a minute. I love how this dude raps.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And there's like elements of these beats that were like, for whatever reason, Timberland didn't make me feel that way. For some, like none of them had that mixture of, like I said with Dre, like it's so sonically perfect, and it's all the messaging about this is what I'm against.
Mm-hmm.
With Pharrell, it's like there's something so ultra hip hop about all of this, but it also there's a feeling where like, you know what I mean? So yeah. Anyway. But I still was like, there's got to be something. So I went with What Happened to That Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Which is similar. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, yeah. You know, it's kind of like grinding. It's in the same kind of lane as the grinding beat, which could have been it too.
Can I say something about grinding?
Yeah.
Grinding falls into a category of beats. I think we all have at least one or two of these. Grinding isn't a sample-based beat. I think we all have a sample or two that we hear different than how it gets used. Mm-hmm. When I hear grinding, I don't hear the beginning of it the way that the rest of the world hears it.
Yeah.
It's like a 2-bar loop.
Yeah.
And to me, it starts on bar 2. And so when Pusha comes in rapping, I'm like, oh, you came in wrong.
Yes.
And then the whole rest of the song just keeps going.
Yes.
And it just drives me nuts. That's one of my favorite beats, and it's hard for me to listen to the song because I'm like, you're doing it wrong.
No, yeah, you have those. You can't hear it. Hola Jovito. Like Hola, once the beat kicks in, you.
Oh yeah.
Don't.
Yeah. Well, that.
But then once the beat kicks in, then you love Hola Jovito, but you hate the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have songs like that where you.
Yeah, the Sandworms sample from Dave Matthews that Large Professor used, and I think maybe like Method Man and Redman used. It's like do 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 do.
Yeah,
that's another one that's like.
What's the first bar of that to you? Because I have those too. There's a bunch of those.
One.
Okay. Yeah, to me, not at all. Nope.
Yeah, I know.
And then Skins too. Dun.
Oh, I love that.
Dun. Where's the one to you?
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Ba-da-da-da. Dun.
Is the one. Yeah.
Bump is the one.
Yeah, to me, the one is ba-da-ba-da-ba. And then bar 2 is ba-dum-dum, da-dum-dum.
I'm remembering that now because I tried to work that beat into our set. I love that song. I love that beat. I love that sample. I tried to put that into there's a couple songs like that at some point in time I tried to work into our set, and you'd just be like, nope, because you and me hear it different.
Yes.
It's never going to work.
Yeah. No,
one of us is going to be furious. One of us is going to be very uncomfortable with the way that we're doing this.
Yes. Yeah, man. It's crazy how that works. Like, yeah, the Public Enemy song that I'm on is like such a big moment for me that I asked Chuck to be on my record, and he's like, yeah, but you got to be on my record too. And I was like, oh, he's so nice. Like, he's the nicest guy ever. And then he sent me a joint and was like, this is going to be a single. It's going to be a video. Like, this is the single that you're on. I'm like, damn. All right. So I worked on my verse, sent it in. It got placed on the beat half a bar off, not even a full bar, but like half a bar off.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear it till it came out. And then we made a video for it. And I couldn't even, it was hard to rap along with it. But yeah, there's a lot of joints like that.
You know, there's a De La Soul track. I feel like maybe it's a remix of Stakes is High. It's an official an official release, like a sanctioned remix, and one of the verses, not the whole song, one of the verses gets placed like a half bar early or a half bar late.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think it's on purpose. Because it doesn't sound wrong. It just sounds different. And I remember hearing it and being like, whoa, what a decision. Like what a,
well, did they re-wrap it, or did they place
Nope. It just got placed different. And I've never been clear if that was on purpose and how they feel about it.
Yeah.
But as a fan, I loved it. And in fact, I almost shouldn't give this away, but on my new record, A Black Box Recovery, there's a song that's horn driven, and there's all these different sections of it. But there's sort of two areas where I wanted the trumpet to kind of take a solo, like a traditional jazz solo. And he turned in one that I was really excited about. And then he got COVID, and then COVID turned into long COVID, and we just sort of ran out of time, and it wasn't possible to record a second one. And so I took the first one and I offset it by like a bar and a half. And it sounds, even to me, like it's a different solo, even though it's literally the exact same recording, just shifted in time. It's funny how that stuff can work. And if it's done intentionally, you can do some really interesting, fun things with it. But I also know from your experience and a couple other folks' experiences that when it happens to you and it wasn't part of the creative choice, it can be really disappointing and frustrating.
It's just like a tension. And there's times where people do it where I'm like, yo, he just doesn't care. Like he's just rapping. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a song, I'm about to blow the fuck up. Blowing Up the Spot.
Gangstar. The Gangstar.
Like Guru comes in a bar off in my mind. But then he's rhyming really awkward. Y'all done got me pissed off, blast off, lift off, time for me to twist off. Oh, to me, he comes in a bar off, but then the whole rhyme feels really like very kind of like out of Guru's typical wheelhouse. And so I'm like, man, I don't know if he did that on purpose or if he just heard the beat different than how I hear it, but it makes it like that's one of the more interesting. That was always one of my favorite like rhyming performances of his, because I'm like, man, it's landing in weird places, and it's like he's being so much more abstract than he usually is. And I think it's because either he came in wrong or he just heard it different than me. But the fact that it starts on the one that I think is the one that makes me think I'm hearing it the same way Premier intended it, because he started it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you have a Premier joint?
You know what's crazy? I don't. And I even sat down. I don't have a Premier joint because I had so much trouble finding the one.
Yeah, what's the
I literally that he's the only one on this whole list. Everything else that I put on here, I just like went for a walk and thought about music and jotted down a couple notes. His was the only one where I was like, I can't not have Premier on here, and like pulled up Spotify and like punched through the discography and just couldn't come up with the one. There's so many.
But
and
also,
obviously,
do any of them really stand on their own with these other beats? I'm kind of like, man, with Premier, he's more than these other people. Like they all have great catalogs, but to me, like any one of his beats, if you say this particular beat is a masterpiece, I don't know if there's any of them that I would call masterpieces.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know.
Because they're all so simple, but they're also like not at the same time. You know what I mean? Like,
correct.
So like,
I mean, there's a bunch where there's a lot of mastery happening, you know, but a lot of it is like technical mastery also. Like there's so many Premiere samples that when I found them, I'd hear it and it's like, I know this is the sample, but even hearing this, I can't quite figure out how he made the beat out of this.
Yes. Yeah.
I can hear all of the parts that are in there, but like, how do they even fit together? And how did he hear this and turn it into that? How did his ears know that that is what this wanted to be? I just, it's
like pre-Dilla, like especially around Moment of Truth time. Like Moment of Truth, it's like, how'd you take this and get that out of it?
Yeah. You know where he shows up is in, here's the next one that I'll talk about. I cheated. I took one of my spots and I totally cheated, but I stand behind it. I'm going to use one of my spots. I'm going to unionize a whole bunch of different beats, kind of a category of beats, and have them just fill a spot together. I have such a love of like late 80s, early 90s beats that have a 1-bar loop. You know, like MC Light's Stop, Look, Listen, Droppin' Science by Craig G, Flavor in Your Ear comes a little bit later, but same kind of idea. Choice is Yours, the Revisited, like the one that DJs love to play. Doom, 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 doom. And Premiere is the king of the 1-bar loop. There's so many of them. Mass Appeal is maybe my favorite of those. But the king of all the hip hop songs with a 1-bar loop has to be Special Ed, I Got It Made. Doom, 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 doom. There's something about the style of rapping that people were doing back then.
Yeah.
Over a beat that just relentlessly and endlessly loops every single bar.
Yes.
It gives the rapping a quality of like, this guy just never stops. You
Right,
know what I
right.
mean? Like,
yeah,
it gives it well, I already used the word relentless, but that's the word. There's a relentless quality to it that I just love. So that's where Premiere sneaks into my list.
Yeah, I did Above the Clouds.
That I definitely thought about it,
but it could have been. I mean, it could have just as easily been Mass Appeal. Yeah, I mean, there's just a bunch. There's a million of them. Like I think that there's a case to be made for him being the greatest of all time. Like, there's no, you know what I mean. And I love what he's about. Like, he's not as as outwardly stated as Guru was about being positive and like, Black royalty and virtue and all this kind of stuff. But there's something about his thing where like every time you hear him talk about the artists that he works with, he'll always shout out their family and like name their parents by name.
Yeah.
He'll be like, shout to Miss Niecy Goins, his mother, shout to Mr. Larry, shout out to his little sister, so-and-so. Like
that's exactly right.
There's just something, and I mean, he's from Texas, and there's something about him that just feels very, that. But then also, when he works with big artists that are shiny and everything, I think about like So Ghetto, or there's something about it where he's gonna remind you, like, man, don't forget that this person made it really big, but they're actually dope. Like, don't forget that they're dope in the basement. Like, don't ever get it twisted. Jay-Z's dope in the basement, and he's gonna be dope at D&D Studios, and pretty much everybody he works with. Or what you gonna do when they all go home? And Devin the Dude.
Devin the Dude.
Yeah, like Devin the Dude could rap. Don't think that he's a joke. Like, he's funny, and he can sing and all this other stuff. But like, man, Devin the Dude can rap. Don't get it twisted. Everybody all the bigger artists that he works with, there's like a thing where he's honoring the fact that they're There's something true about them.
You know what I'm calling an audible. You know what my DJ Premier beat is? It's MC Zach Like They Don't Know. I love that beat.
Mm-hmm.
I love that beat. Above the Clouds makes a lot of sense. A, because it's just a beautiful beat. And B, I mean, I said explicitly at the beginning that I was removing like technical skills, like virtuosity from my thinking on this. But like that's the era of Premiere where he really reinvented what you can do with samples.
Yeah. Like chopping and making something rhythmic that wasn't like, that's not the way they played that.
Yeah. Like turning stabs into melodic elements, stuttering things. And yeah, it's just such an incredible beat. But yeah, MC's act like they don't know. That's going to be mine.
Yeah.
And it's got that signature bell in there. What else you got on yours?
I have Cream.
Ah, yeah. Yep.
And to me, like, as much as I love RZA, I've never been like, man, RZA's my favorite rapper, or RZA's my favorite beat maker. Although there were some that like changed everything forever. But if we were going to say like, what are my actual favorite beats in hip hop? Like Cream it could easily be number one, and it's definitely very near the top. It's just a loop. Like it's just, you know what I mean? But man, it's so sad and beautiful at the same time. And it so is like, you know, yeah, just it's sad and beautiful and simple and dynamic, and like it's just it's just one of the greatest hip hop beats ever made. I think about some of these beats that I could just listen to the beat for a full day and never want it to end. You know what I mean? There's just something about that beat that I love the way it makes me feel. I love the space it puts me in. I love just everything about it. Flawless, perfect.
Yeah. One that's like that for me is Runnin', The Far Side, Runnin'.
Yeah.
And that's going to be my Dilla entry. I mean, it's no notes, not a lot to say, just an incredibly beautiful beat.
And it's one that never really has an end, and you never want it to end. It's interesting that it's called Running, you know what I mean? Because it feels like you're driving or running, or like it just feels like you're moving. It feels like you're on an airplane or on a train, or like it feels like you're on some sort of ride that's enjoyable and beautiful, and you're not in a hurry to get off it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And you know, you and I are at the tail end of the newest cohorts, the newest offering of the Blood on Beat songwriting series. And one of the things that got covered a couple weeks ago was just song structure, different pieces of a song. In talking about song structure, you brought up bridges, and there was this whole conversation that came out of that, not in class, but first in the chat, and then later in the Slack channel, of people just trying to identify, people who were kind of new to song structure and analyzing songs in that way, trying to figure out what the bridge is in hip hop songs. And, you know, it became apparent like, well, bridges are incredibly common in like pop music and singer-songwriter music and lots of other genres. And there's certainly classic bridges in hip hop, but there's not a ton. Bridges don't show up nearly as often in hip hop as they do in some other genres. And when they do, a lot of times they're really special, maybe because they're so rare. And so it's not even a big bridge, but like in Runnin', where like 2 or so minutes into the song, all of a sudden that saxophone comes in. It's just such a great feeling. Like, just, this is already such a perfect beat, and all of a sudden something brand new just happened that I wouldn't have predicted, and that only just serves to make this so much better.
the second you say therapy, the people that need therapy and don't want it, automatically their ears turn off. And I get it. I understand. It's really a generational thing. You know what I'm saying? Like the newer generation have come up on social media and they have almost like one extreme. My wife's a therapist. And so she says, like, a lot of times people in their 20s come in self-diagnosing. They want a diagnosis so that they can have some understanding for what they're struggling with. You know what I'm saying? Because on social media, there's so much exposure to this kind of language that sometimes people honestly fake the funk and misdiagnose themselves and others, you know. And that's one end of the spectrum, but they are really aware of it. Whereas like people my age, I'm in my 40s, you know what I'm saying? Most of the people that listen to us are in their 30s and 40s. And for us, like we came up with a stigma around that stuff. And we came up watching The Sopranos, watching Analyze This, watching movies, Woody Allen movies or whatever, where someone is sitting with their analyst and that person is, you know, breaking down all this stuff. A lot of times we have an aversion to therapy because we just don't understand what it is. And therapy can be everything from I'm hearing voices, which is extremely rare, all the way down to I just need somebody to talk through these arguments I'm having in my head with my ex or with this person that I used to be close with, or, you know, why do I seem to keep having these certain cycles, or why is it so hard for me to stop eating junk food or abusing porn, or why is it so hard for me to stick to the stuff that I want to do? Why is it so hard for me to talk to these certain people? You know, just wanting to have some understanding of our own selves. You know what I mean? To have somebody support us in our understanding of what's going on inside me. All of this is under the banner of therapy, under the canopy of therapy, and a lot more, you know. Everybody's got their own reason that brings them to it, but I'm a big proponent of just try it out. It seems weird, and I do think it's weird. I think that in a natural society where people lived with their families and their communities and everything, we wouldn't need something like this. You know, but because we live in the societies and cultures and way of life and pace of life and everything else, a lot of times we do need somebody that we can talk to. So I think everybody should have the opportunity to at least give it a try. And BetterHelp is really good for doing that. That's what I use for therapy. So BetterHelp.com/travelers. You start out by telling them what you want to do in therapy, what's bringing you there. Then you talk to them a little bit. You answer some questions about, is there a certain kind of therapist you want? Do you want to, you know, you're really in control. And they try to find you somebody that's a good match for you. You set up a session for them on your time, the way that you want to talk. And if you like it, you keep talking to that person. If you think they might not be a match, then you can switch. And in between time, you just share what you feel like sharing. And even just use it as a little brief kind of check-in point. And when you use our link, which is betterhelp.com/travelers, you'll get a discount on your first month. And also, we also get a little something on our end because we help make the connection. So it's a win for everybody. Couldn't suggest it more highly. If you haven't done therapy, if you think it's stupid, if you're a little bit scared of it, just give it a try, because once you try, you will always be able to say, I have tried therapy. Yeah, I did it. You know what I mean? You don't have to tell all your deepest, darkest secrets. Maybe just talking about something that just mildly irritates you and see how you feel talking to that person. You might end up going further with it. You might realize that, you know, I think I'm good. But either way, everybody deserves to understand what this therapy thing is and at least have an experience with it. So betterhelp.com/travelers. Do you have anything that's like a total oddball, like you wouldn't expect?
I do. If I was going to rank these, I'd probably put this at 10. This would have been the one that like slipped in, but I wanted there to be something on my list that represented how ambitious you can get as a hip hop producer. And so there's a couple different things that I thought about for this slot. But what I landed on was The Water by The Roots.
Oh, wow.
You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah. No, we played that song to death. It's like one of the few times that you actually hear Black Thought be very personal and autobiographical and like borderline emotional. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a song
It's
about
a fantastic song.
them dealing with Malik B's addiction. And that's
Yeah.
before he passed. I'm just like, man, I guarantee you'll never hear this song live. And if you do,
Nope.
it's going to be a really special moment. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one and only vulnerable Black Thought song in that way, in that particular autobiographical
In that way. Yep. But that beat, so, the beat kind of has a front half and a back half.
Mm-hmm.
And the front half, I love. It's got that flying lizard sample. And I love the way that they take just like the lightest touch of the vocals and just tease them out as just this like atmospheric element. I think that's really beautiful. It's a head snapper, but it's really syncopated and off kilter, which always appeals to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the second half, which is this like 5-minute instrumental interpretation of addiction and overdose, and at the end, death. And, this is not a song that I can listen to all the time, and I wouldn't want to, because it's a whole thing. But when I do, I love every minute of the song. And when it came out, I took notice of what it showed, it was instructive to me in showing that you can do traditional music making and take big swings. You can do wild, out there stuff. And if it's paired with, really saying something emotional, something authentic, something meaningful, that it can be more than just like an artistic exercise. It can really impact the listener and be something great. So that's my oddball on this list.
Yeah. I said that because I don't think I have an oddball or something that somebody wouldn't expect. I was like struggling, and like I don't even know if my list is actually 10, but I was like, dang, if I was gonna have a Roots one, what would it be? And to me, it's Love of My Life.
Yeah.
Like all the different elements of that, and like, but then also that thing with the strings at the end, and just it's amazing, man. Like I remember like we were already like deep into our friend, like we're in the deep early stages of our friendship when that record came out. And it was just like, what is happening in hip hop right now?
That album was so big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For everybody that was listening to Stevie Wonder and Donny Hathaway, like all the stuff that obviously inspired it. You know what I mean? Like for everybody that was already on that page, it's just like, man, this is the most amazing. So I had to put an Atmosphere one in. And to me, maybe it's an oddball. I guess I don't know, but it's Say Hey There. I think Say Hey There is the most quintessential Atmosphere song. It's also the last one they made like that. It's also like all of the like Slug, and it's really interesting too because out of all the Slug dysfunctional relationship songs, that's the one where he says, I'm not going to do this relationship. I'm not going to be in a dysfunctional relationship anymore. And it's the last song they made like that, but it's also the most perfect one. Say Hey There, to me, the lyrics, and you can't really count the lyrics necessarily, but it is, to me, like you could tell that that's how he was over it. And he just writes a perfect song about being in a dysfunctional relationship. But that music to me is everything that's so great about Ant. Like it's there's something like soulful and bluesy about it. It's got these like different movements that have never been really common in hip hop. The way he does the sample and the drums together, it's like a little bit out of key. You know what I mean? There's like something sad about it. You know what I mean? Sad and beautiful. It's not unlike the Cream sample, but there's like a sparse, if I was to tell anybody, if you could only hear one Atmosphere song to hear what they're about, that would be the song to me.
Do you have one on your list? You talked about the Roots being a moment. Obviously, Ant. I guess Ant and Atmosphere aren't really an era. I'm just kind of thinking about eras of music,
Yeah.
and beats that are kind of emblematic of those eras. Another movement and time that was like really big in our relationship and just hip hop in general is kind of like the Rockefeller, Jay-Z,
Yes.
Kanye, Just Blaze
Wonder if it's the
era.
same one.
I struggled because there's so many that it could have been.
Yeah.
What'd you come up with?
Ain't No Love.
Yeah, that's a pretty great one.
To me, Ain't No Love is like the one, like the soul sample era. To me, that everything about that one, the song, the beat, the sound, like the texture of it, like, man, the way that they layered singers on there, and you know what I mean? To me, that defines that era for me. It also, but it could have been Girls, Girls, Girls. And then also there's like the more soulful kind of ones, and then there's the like hype ones. It could have been like the hype ones, like PSA is more of like 1-900 Hustler, like the type that we would have used in my set.
That's right.
It's like, man, all right, I'm gonna put this on. Watch what Ali does. He's gonna start punching everybody in the face with his rapping.
What's the beat on yours that the least number of people will have heard? Or are they all certified hits?
I think they're all, yeah. I mean, Phone Tap isn't the hit. Players, I feel like Players is not. I mean, for like a real Dilla head, that's one of the ones. But I don't think that's. Everybody's heard The Light by Common. You know what I mean? There's plenty of Dilla joints that everybody knows. I don't know if that's necessarily one of them. But most of them are. Yeah, I got We Gonna Make It in there too. That to me, that's one of the greatest rap beats ever. It's another one where the rapping is great, but it doesn't really matter. Even though Jadakiss is like one of the best rappers ever, I don't care about the rapping on it at all. It's just, it just fits the beat well.
What's the beat on here that you care the least about the rapping on the song?
It's either We Gonna Make It or Players. I mean, but Phone Tap too. I don't care about the rapping on Phone Tap.
Sure.
I don't care about the rapping on What Happened to That Boy at all. I don't like. I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't care. You know what I mean? And Pusha T is amazing. He's one of the best ever. Like, he's truly incredible, and he can be amazing with other people. It doesn't have to be with Pharrell. You know what I mean? Where at first I was like, man, this dude sounds great on these beats. But then once they both kept going, it's like, man, he's incredible. But I don't care about that rapping at all.
I've got Born to Roll by Masta Ace.
Wow.
That's just one of my all-time favorite beats. And I know that the first lines of that song are Brainiac Dum Dum Bust the Scientifical.
Yeah.
Something, 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 and the force is centrifugal. And I don't think I know any more words after that. And I don't care. That beat is so hard.
It's weird. Like, it stands out so much in his catalog. And like, you know what I mean? Like hearing an East Coast lyrical rapper spit to a beat like that was just so like, what is happening?
Yeah. The Juice Crew over 808s and synths. Yeah.
And then I had to have something from Kanye, and that was difficult. Like, which one is it? You know what I mean? And it has to be the beat. So if it was the whole song, it's like, man, it could be 100 things. But like, which one is it? The beat. It's very difficult. So I just picked it. I went with I Wonder. Find your dreams come true.
Yeah.
Like, that makes me want to cry. Like, man, his music makes me emotional. He made me feel aspirational in the best ways. Where I'm like, man, in that period, you know what I mean? I still listen to Kanye after that. I haven't listened to the last couple of things because I'm just like, man, this music better really grab me immediately because I just can't. I'm like, man, I feel wrong. I feel like we shouldn't know what Kanye's doing. You know what I mean? I'm just like, this isn't fair. Like, this is really not cool to have this guy in a spotlight. You know what I mean? The times when Chappelle is like, I got in a plane and I went and saw about Kanye. And I'm like, that's what should happen. It should be Chappelle and Yassine Bey being like, hey man, you good? You know what I mean? We're just here to check on you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's footage of when Kanye was doing the Sunday service thing. He had them all sing "Happy Birthday" to Dave Chappelle, the Stevie Wonder one,
Mm-hmm.
and like, man, that makes me just bawl. You know what I mean? Like, it's just on social media. I think it's on his wife's Instagram. So like, you have to be friends with them and follow her. But like, I go watch that whenever it's like the Donny Hathaway song or something, like that moment. But man, Kanye makes me feel like that period from his first album all the way through Dark Twisted Fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and even the one that he did with Jay-Z. There's still there's always moments. He kind of lost me on like Yeezus and stuff like that, where I started to kind of check out a little bit. But there's still moments on all those joints. Like, man, me and my wife saw him on the Life of Pablo tour, and man, he had like a floating platform that floated around the crowd, and he started with that beautiful morning, sunshine in my morning, girl. Oh, dude, you're the only power. Man, that still gives me goosebumps thinking about that. But yeah, there's a whole period of Kanye that's just like, man, no matter what he ever says or does, like what that music meant and still means is just too beautiful.
Yeah. I got Get By.
Yeah.
And I'm counting the choir as part of the
Sure.
With with both of these. I didn't even think about it that both of these have choirs on them, but that and Jesus Walks. And I'm like, but the choir has to be counted as part of the beat.
It is.
That's not part of the vocals.
Yeah. I mean, just the same way that the bass player's got to be part of. Like, yeah, because it's not just easy to you don't just throw a choir on something.
Mm-hmm. And then I kind of, if this had been like 25 instead of 10, I was like, man, there's two parts of Kanye, and like that's the soul sample side, but then there's like the synthesizer side.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find one that I felt so strongly about that it was going to push something else out of my 10. But I do want to nod to that period and say like something like Flashing Lights, or
I was gonna say Flashing Lights, but to me that has to the song. The song has to be in there. It can't be the beat.
That's true.
The beat doesn't stand out by itself enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, Flashing Lights is definitely.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the one would be, but he tapped into something pretty special with the sort of like maximalist synth driven beat too.
Yeah.
There's something in there that probably deserves to be on a list.
Yeah. Is there any you haven't mentioned? To me, I haven't mentioned my all-time favorite hip hop beat yet.
I guess this isn't going to be my all-time favorite, but it's certainly up there, and it's the last one. I didn't stick to 10, but this will be the last one that I put on here.
Yeah.
I started with Deep Cover, and I said that as a DJ, it's a never miss track. Here's another one. Hypnotize is just, and again, it's just a sample with some drums. It's not a lot happening there, but it's just so good.
The beat?
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
This and what did I say? Drop It Like It's Hot. Both start with that stutter the sample or stutter the beat until it drops thing. And both of them to such great effect. This one, it requires the Biggie in there too, but it's just so hard.
That surprises me. Like Biggie a couple times made me like music that I would otherwise hate. And to me, that's one. Like I remember the first time I heard, they were playing that instrumental on KMOJ. And I remember thinking, oh, this sucks.
Wow. No. I love that beat.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your all-time favorite?
Okay, well, the one that I didn't mention yet, that's not, but I had to put something from Q-Tip in. And I had Electric Relaxation, but now that I've like started talking about it's got to be the beat holding its own, I think it might be One Love, actually.
Yeah.
That's the Smiling Billy thing one, right? Yeah, for Nas.
Smiling Billy Sweet,
Yeah.
the Heath brothers.
Yeah. I think like if I'm gonna say, but it's weird because that's a similar, the same as it's very similar to Phone Tap. Like a very similar kind of like almost like Eastern scale kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's something mysterious about it.
That kalimba. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's something about that. There's something about the like lyrical like part of me that's like very like went for the time that it came out where it's like, yo, some thoughts for the mind. You know what I'm saying? I meditate on this joint.
Yeah.
It's very like this guy sips the Don P watching Gandhi till he's charged, and then he starts rapping, watching Gandhi. but I mean, Q-Tip is. I feel like no matter what anybody said, like you just can't talk. You can't say enough about how like Q-Tip might be the greatest.
Yeah.
Overall, you know what I mean. You could put him against any other person in hip hop in terms of like what he's created, and he could take anybody out, including Dre, including everybody, including Pharrell, including anybody, especially because he's doing all parts himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's that. But my favorite all-time hip hop beat is They Reminisce Over You, Troy.
It's so good.
To me, it's like that's the best beat ever made to me.
That's the first hip hop song. That's the first hip hop beat where I ever noticed drum fills.
Man, yeah.
And it really stood out to me. Those little snare stutters that he puts in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty special.
Like somebody could cover that beat. Someone could make a cover of that beat, and the beat itself is beautiful. And I mean, it's a sample, but nothing sounded like that before it. There's just something so perfect about it. And then I love what the song's about, even though the songs are not nearly as important as the beat to me. You know what I mean? But I also do really like what he's talking about and just the whole idea of it. But like, man, that beat is, yeah, just very special. It's a trip that I was wondering if you were going to be different than me, but there's like little nods to early hip hop, but then it definitely is very like early 2000s heavy, like late 90s, early 2000s, like all of our whole list.
Yeah. I'm just scrolling back through mine.
Like for me, okay, so my list is Troy, which is 92. Players, which is 2000 probably. We Gonna Make It is like 2001. Phone Tap is 97. Above the Clouds is 97. Ain't No Love is 2003. Cream is earlier, like that's 91, 92 maybe. Electric Relaxation or One Love or early 90s, I guess. What Happened to That Boy is early 2000s. Say Hey There is 2007. I Wonder is 2007. But it's kind of like that's the era.
Mm-hmm.
Like it for me, it ends. And like my genuine love of like what's happening in hip hop music, I think peaked in that early 2000 to like 2010 period. And then like after like 2012, it's just like, I don't really pay attention to this genre anymore. If there's anything great, someone will tell me about it. I'd stop paying attention after 2012. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I've got some from the 2000s. I think mine tend to skew more towards like the center of gravity in mine is like 1991, 92. You know, I'm going to say that my 1 bar loop slot is filled with mostly late 80s songs. Welcome to the Terror Dome is 1990, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to talk about Roller Skate Jam named Saturdays by De La. I don't feel the need to, but I think that's 90, 91.
Yeah, that's 90.
Oh, in fact, it is 90 because I got those 2 tapes. I got I got the Public Enemy and the De La both as birthday presents the same year. Different friends gave me those 2 tapes, and it's like all I listened to for the next year. And then, you know, like Hypnotize, Run-In, Deep Cover, all like early-ish 90s.
And I mean, Merce would point out that these are very East Coast heavy.
I thought about that. I mean, I've got Snoop, I've got Dre, I've got Pharcyde.
But the Pharcyde beat is not a West Coast beat.
No, it's not.
Like, that's a Detroit beat that sounds like an East Coast beat.
That's true.
The other two are Dre. I mean, like, you know what I mean? That's like saying, come on, we gave you Obama. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, if somebody is so perfect that they can't be denied, then yes, we'll acknowledge them. But like, there's no DJ Quick. There's no Battle Cat. There's no DJ Khalil. There's no...
I gave serious consideration to DJ Pooh. DJ Pooh. Like I thought for sure something off of one of Cube's first albums was going to end up on here. But then it just didn't.
Yeah. And I mean, those are some of the most influential music on both of us, but...
Yeah.
I don't think of those records for the beats, even though the beats are great. Like, man, the themes and the lyrics and all that stuff are so central that I don't really think of those for the beat. Like, there's none of those beats that I'm like, man, put that beat on and I'll clean the house or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really care to hear any of those beats without Cube. I'm not trying to listen to the instrumental versions or any of that stuff.
Well, on that note, this was a fun exercise.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a hip hop question I had never been asked before. I felt like it'd be where, especially since we're talking about, you know, you as a producer, as a musician, just to, you know what I mean, and learning these new things, and to go back, and I thought it would be a good conversation to put this exercise in.
Yeah, for sure.
Special thanks to BK1 for getting behind the mic. You know, he edits all these episodes, produces these episodes. He's the guy, basically, after I turn the mic off, he's the one that starts doing everything else to make sure that this stuff reaches the world. If you haven't heard the other episodes that we've done together, we did 2 long episodes about a year ago with BK1, getting into our history together and his history as a person and as a music maker, a musician. Really, really dope. This stuff is really beautiful. This is an amazing human being who has an amazing family. His wife is an incredible person. It's just a story that's, I think, really inspirational for people that are thinking about, like, can I actually live a life that's, you know, centered on and funded by my passions and what actually matters to me in life. It's a beautiful story. And then we came back and did another episode for our 100th episode of the podcast. And we talked about different conversations we've had on this podcast and what the experience has been like. Then we came back a couple weeks ago and did one about his new album called A Black Box Recovery. By the time last I heard, there was only a small handful of copies of that vinyl left. Shout out to my man Kenya Evans, who got one of those copies. Super dope, really means a lot. But man, they're almost gone. They might be gone by the time you hear this. So go to brotherali.com, see if you can snag one of those before they're gone forever. Much love to everybody that listens, that, you know, shares and likes and subscribes and signs a mailing list and join the caravan and all of that good stuff. This really matters, and we really appreciate you very, very much. We will be back next week talking to my man Mally about the new album he made with Last Word. You know what? I was on the DOD 45 podcast, which is one of the very, very few podcasts that actually talks about our small corner of underground independent hip hop music. So shout out to them. It's 2 episodes in full. One is Ty from Art by Ty, drawing while he and his amazing partner and I have a conversation. But then there's a whole second episode that they do called The Dish, where they talk about your firsts, worsts, and thirst. So there's 2 full episodes of me talking to them. I listened to it. I think I kind of sound like a jerk. I sound pretty uptight on especially the second one. But I don't know. Maybe not. Let me know. But it's dope. It's cool that they care about the music that we make and that they talk to us artists that are in this section of the world. There's questions on there from Mr. Dibbs and Sage Francis, and Slug does a shout out at the beginning, and there's original music on there. And it's dope. It's dope to just see Ty create a piece of art as we're talking that's based on the conversation. Super dope. So check out all of that good stuff, and we love you. We appreciate you. Also, big shout out to Merce, one of my dear friends. Merce has the Best Rapper in LA podcast that I listen to all the time. Shout out to Blueprint and Illogic, who have the Super Duty Tough Work podcast. Blueprint got a new album coming out called Chamber Music 2. Illogic, Jawar, is celebrating 20 years of Celestial Clockwork. So that's coming out. He's going to play the whole album with a live band. I feel like there's a resurgence of our type of music, man. People are outside. Like, people are doing our thing. New album and from Mally and Last Word. Like, we're doing great things and we're not slowing down, and it's beautiful to me. So we appreciate you. We love you, and we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.